If someone had asked me that morning whether my marriage was stable, I probably would have said yes. Not perfect. No marriage is. But stable enough. Daniel and I had been together for 6 years, married for 3, and we had our routines, our rhythms, our comfortable little habits that made life feel predictable. Too predictable, maybe, but predictable felt safe. Or so I thought. That evening, the house smelled like garlic butter and roasted chicken. Soft music played on the little kitchen speaker, and Daniel hummed along as he stirred something in the pan. I watched him for a moment, his easy smile, his relaxed posture, and for a brief second, I wondered if maybe I had imagined all the subtle tension I'd felt over the past few months. The late nights at work. The phone he kept face down. The sudden gym obsession. The new cologne he said he got on sale. Maybe I was being paranoid. Then his phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times in quick succession. He didn't notice. He was chopping herbs, too focused on his cooking experiment of the week. But I noticed. You always notice the things you're subconsciously afraid of. At first, I assumed it was one of his work chats. They messaged him constantly, even after hours. But something about the rhythm of the notifications felt personal, urgent, like someone who expected a reply. I turned my head, pretending to check the oven temperature, but really glancing at the phone lying on the counter beside me, and instantly, something inside me went very, very still. I recognized the name on the lock screen, Lily Work. The woman he mentioned occasionally in passing, usually with an eye roll or a sigh. She's annoying. She talks too much. She's harmless. I used to laugh when he said it. Now it felt like a knife twisting slowly. The phone buzzed again, lighting up with yet another message. My chest tightened. I miss you. I blinked hard, thinking maybe I misread it. Maybe I saw the words I feared instead of what was actually there. But the message stayed there on the screen, glowing like a warning light. Then another message arrived before I could breathe. I can still feel last night. My throat burned. My pulse thudded in my ears. Last night he came home late. Last night he said his project had hit a wall. Last night he showered the moment he walked in. Last night he kissed my forehead, not my lips, and said he was exhausted. The phone vibrated again. Are you alone? Before the screen dimmed, I tapped the message thread. It opened without a password. Maybe that was the last shred of innocence he had left, but it didn't matter anymore. A few of their older messages were deleted. I could tell because the conversation had sharp gaps, weird inconsistencies. But not everything was gone. Some messages survived like pieces of a broken mirror reflecting a truth I didn't want to see. Her I loved tonight. Him me too. Her wish you didn't have to go home. Him you know I can't stay. I felt sick. Behind me, Daniel said casually, "Can you grab the pepper from the shelf?" The normalcy of his voice nearly made me laugh. Pepper. He was worried about pepper while his phone was confessing a whole second life. I didn't grab the pepper. Instead, something cold and calm settled over me, pushing aside the shock. Not forgiveness, not rage, clarity. I picked up his phone. My fingertips were steady, too steady. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened the message box where her last message stared at me, needy and eager. I miss you. The woman was writing like she owned him, like she expected him, like she thought I was clueless. Maybe she believed she could quietly replace me. Maybe she believed I was too weak to confront anything. Maybe she believed he loved her. But she didn't believe that I would be the one holding the phone. Daniel still hadn't noticed. "Did you check the timer?" he asked. "No," I said softly. I typed 2 words. "Come over." My heart didn't pound. My breath didn't shake. It was like sliding a puzzle piece into place. Her reply came instantly, like she had been waiting all day for that moment. "Really?" I typed again. "Yes, doors open." And I hit send. Then I set the phone back down exactly where it had been, screen facing up now, because I wanted him to see it. "Something wrong?" Daniel asked, finally glancing over his shoulder. "You'll see," I murmured. He didn't hear me. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside just a bit, enough to see the driveway. The evening light was fading into that soft bluish haze right before night fully settles in. A car drove by. Another parked across the street, my mind filled with a cold, eerie determination. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment revenge act. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't even anger. Not yet. This was truth. Cold, sharp truth. And I was done waiting for it to reveal itself. Daniel kept cooking, humming, occasionally tasting the sauce, completely unaware that the life he was trying to build was about to detonate in his hands. I watched him for a moment. The man I loved. The man I trusted. The man I now realized I didn't know at all. Maybe that was the worst part. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't some dark villain living a double life. He was ordinary, human, weak, and in his weakness, he had made a choice that shattered something sacred without hesitation. I turned away from the window and quietly set the table, 3 plates instead of 2. Silverware clinked against ceramic. The room felt too warm, too quiet, too full of a truth waiting to erupt. 20 minutes. That's how long it takes to ruin or save a marriage. I sat at the dining table, elbows resting lightly on the wood, hands folded, watching the kitchen doorway like a hunter waiting for the moment prey walks into the clearing. Because in 20 minutes the door would open. And when it did, nothing in this house, not the dinner, not the marriage, not the lies simmering silently, would be the same again. The doorbell chimed at 7:42 p.m., 3 soft rings, not hesitant, almost familiar. The sound sliced through the peaceful kitchen like a blade drawn slowly across glass. Daniel looked up from the stove, eyebrows lifting. "You expecting someone?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. His confusion lingered for only a second before the doorbell rang again. 2 shorter, quicker chimes this time, the kind you give someone you know is home. Something about that shift, casual confidence, made Daniel's forehead tighten. He wiped his hands on a towel and walked toward the hallway. My pulse stayed steady, my breathing smooth. I'd thought I would shake, that my hands would tremble, that I'd collapse under the weight of dread or heartbreak. But the reality was different. I felt awake, sharper than I had been in months. Because when the truth is finally about to explode, your emotions don't scatter, they crystallize. Daniel paused with his hand on the doorknob. "Probably a wrong house," he muttered to himself. But when he opened the door, the lie he'd built for himself, meticulously, quietly, selfishly, crumbled like ash in a storm. Lily stood there, hair curled, soft pink lipstick, perfume drifting into the house in a sweet, thick wave. A fitted coat in a color she thought made her look innocent, but nothing about her was innocent. She didn't look at Daniel first. She looked past him, straight at me. Her smile evaporated instantly. "Oh," she whispered. Daniel froze. His body went stiff, breath trapped halfway in his throat. "La Lily," he stuttered. What are you doing here?" She blinked at him in disbelief. "You told me to come. You said the door was open." Her eyes flicked nervously across his face, then back to me, then back to him. A woman who had been sure of her place 2 minutes ago was now scrambling to understand why the wife was present in a moment she believed belonged only to her and Daniel. Daniel's confusion whipped into panic. He rushed toward his phone on the kitchen counter like a man running toward a drowning truth. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. He snatched the phone up, and his face collapsed. "What did you? Why did?" He looked at me, voice cracking. "You texted her." "No," I said calmly. I replied. Silence. Every emotion, guilt, betrayal, fear, crashed over Daniel's face at once. He stumbled back a step, grasping for something, anything to say. This isn't." He swallowed. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I replied. Lily stepped inside without waiting for permission. The nerve of her. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, scanning the room like she belonged there, like she had rehearsed this moment. "Daniel," she said sharply. "What is this?" I thought. "Not here," he hissed. "Not now." "Why not?" she snapped. "What? You can kiss me in your car, but suddenly you can't look at me in front of her." Daniel grabbed her arm. "Stop talking." But she didn't stop. Women like her never stop. Not until they feel the consequences crashing down. "Oh, please," Lily said, turning toward me. "I'm not the bad guy here. If your husband paid half as much attention to you as he does to me—" "That's enough," Daniel said, his voice shaking. 3 months. I asked quietly. They both froze. Lily's eyes widened. Daniel, you told her." "No," he said instantly, horrified. 3 months, I repeated. "Right?" Lily swallowed, but she didn't deny it. Sometimes the truth doesn't require force. It just requires the right silence. I stepped forward. "Both of you, sit." Daniel stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. Lily stared like she wasn't sure whether to obey or run. But they sat. Because I didn't ask, I commanded. The dining room felt too bright, too open. The ceiling light hummed softly, and the plates I'd set earlier reflected little patches of brightness across the table. 3 plates, 3 lives, 3 truths. I took the chair across from them and folded my hands. Daniel looked at me with the desperation of a man trying to rewrite a past he suddenly regrets. "Please," he whispered. "It wasn't serious. It was. It was real." Lily cut in. "For me, it was." Daniel shot her a furious look. "You're not helping." She threw her hands up. "What do you want me to do? Lie? Haven't you done enough of that for the both of us?" His jaw tightened. "Can you just—" "You said you loved me," she blurted. My heart didn't break. It didn't even flinch. Because I had already accepted the truth 2 minutes after reading her messages. Daniel's face drained of blood. "I never—" "Lily, stop. You think I imagined it," she snapped. "All the nights we talked, all the times you said you wished you married someone who understood you." He slammed his fist on the table.
"Enough!"
The table rattled. The plates clinked. I didn't react. "Tell me," I said to Daniel, voice steady. "Do you love her?" His eyes darted between us, cornered, suffocating, crumbling. "No," he said. "No." "I don't." "Then why did you choose her? Again and again?" He had no answer, only silence. I turned to Lily. "Do you love him?" She nodded without hesitation. Of course she did. There's always someone who falls harder, and someone who uses the fall. The room shifted, quiet, heavy, charged. Daniel's guilt was thick enough to touch. Lily's humiliation was sharp, metallic. My clarity was cold and smooth. "I had a feeling," I said softly. "A small one. But it was enough." Daniel licked his lips nervously. "You could have talked to me. And you could have respected me." He flinched like I slapped him. A long, torturous moment passed before I finally spoke again. "Do you know why I invited her over?" I asked. Neither answered. So I to stop imagining the worst and finally see the truth. Lily exhaled shakily. Daniel buried his face in his hands. I looked at the two of them, broken in their own ways, guilty in different magnitudes, and made a choice. "I'm done waiting," I said quietly. "Done wondering. Done doubting myself." I stood up, and both of them rose instinctively like I was the judge delivering their sentence. Maybe I was. "Stay here," I commanded. I walked into the living room and returned with something small but powerful, a silver voice recorder. I set it on the table and pressed play. Their voices, his especially, filled the room. Soft whispers, late-night calls, messages they thought were deleted. Moments he promised her things he never even told me. Daniel's face went pale. Lily's lips parted, jaw trembling. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I simply watched them. Because the truth wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was precise, sharp, exact. When the recording ended, the silence that followed was suffocating. Daniel whispered, "Why? Why would you do all this?" I met his eyes. "Because while you were lying," I said, "I was paying attention." I walked to the door and opened it. "For both of you." The door stood open behind me, a rectangular slice of cold night air pouring into the house. The outside world looked darker, heavier, as if even the sky understood what had just unraveled in my living room. Daniel stared at me, eyes wide. The color drained from his face. Lily sat rigidly in her chair, fingers twisted together in her lap, lips trembling with a mixture of anger and humiliation. For a long time, no one moved. Then Daniel finally found his voice. A broken whisper. Please don't do this. I didn't look at him. Stand up. He hesitated, but the command in my voice left no room for negotiation. Slowly, he rose to his feet. Lily followed, almost instinctively, her gaze darting between us like she expected him to somehow save her, or choose her. But he didn't choose anyone. He just looked lost. Small, weak. I stepped closer until I was only a few feet away from him. Even then, I didn't raise my voice. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked softly. Daniel swallowed. That I lied. That you made me feel crazy, I said. For months, I felt something shifting. I asked you questions you brushed off. You made me doubt myself. That's what I'll never forgive. He took a step toward me. I was wrong. I know I was, but we can fix. Stop, I said sharply. We are not anymore. Lily sucked in a breath, but I didn't look at her. My eyes stayed locked on my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband. You didn't respect this marriage, I said. You didn't respect me. You disrespected the vows that you chose, the life we built, the home we shared. And you did it deliberately. Repeatedly. Willingly. He shook his head desperately. I can change. I swear I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just please don't end us like this. You ended us, I said. 3 months ago. Probably long before that. Lily scoffed. Daniel, just leave with me. She clearly doesn't want to hear it. Daniel flinched like her voice physically hurt him. And I realized something in that moment. Something both painful and liberating. He didn't want her. He didn't want me. He wanted comfort. He wanted the safety of his marriage and the thrill of his affair. He wanted both worlds without the consequences of either. But consequences were here now, sitting at my dining table, staring him straight in the face. I'm not asking, I said. I'm telling you. Leave. He took a shaky breath. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. To the woman you risked everything for. Isn't that what you wanted? He turned to Lily. She stiffened. What? She whispered harshly. You can't stay with me. My apartment is tiny, and this isn't what we planned tonight. Oh, I said quietly. It wasn't part of the fantasy, right? Lily snapped her head toward me. I didn't ask for this. I raised an eyebrow. You texted a married man, I miss you. You asked for everything that followed. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no comeback. Daniel looked trapped between two people he no longer controlled, two truths he could no longer bend. Go. I said again, my voice ice cold but steady. Both of you. Lily grabbed her purse with a sharp motion. She strode toward the door, chin high, trying to salvage some dignity. But her expression cracked the moment she stepped outside into the cold air. The confidence she'd walked in with had dissolved into shame. Daniel didn't follow immediately. Instead, he turned back to me, eyes glassy, shoulders shaking. I never meant to hurt you, he said. You have to believe that. I don't have to believe anything you say anymore. He flinched like I punched him. Then, quietly, he asked the one question every guilty man asks right before he falls apart. Is there someone else? It would have been laughable if it wasn't so sad. No, I said softly. There didn't have to be someone else. I just needed to remember who I was before you made me feel small. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. I pointed toward the door. Good night, Daniel. It was not an invitation to stay. It was a door closing on the final page of a chapter he wrote with his own choices. He stepped backwards slowly, as if waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. When he finally crossed the threshold, he whispered, I'm sorry. I said nothing. The door shut behind them with a soft click. Not a slam, not an angry throw. Just a simple, final, irreversible end. The silence afterward was heavy, but not suffocating. Just real. The house felt different, as if the energy had shifted the moment he left. For the first time in months, maybe years, I could breathe. Not through a tight chest, not through a knot in my throat, but fully. The recorder was still on the table. I picked it up, held it in my hand, and considered smashing it. But I didn't. It wasn't for revenge. It wasn't for leverage. It wasn't even for closure. It was a reminder, proof of what I survived. A record of the moment I chose myself. I placed it gently back in the drawer. The dinner Daniel made was still warm on the stove. I turned it off. The kitchen suddenly felt too clean, too organized, like the scene of a play after the actors have left the stage. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch. The quiet felt like a stranger, but not an unwelcome one. My phone buzzed with a message from my sister. "You okay?" I typed back, "I will be," because I knew it was true. A strange warmth settled in my chest, not happiness exactly, but something close. Something like strength. Something like rebirth. Healing wasn't instant. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't pretty. It was sitting on a couch in a quiet house with a broken marriage behind me and an open, terrifying, beautiful future in front of me. It was choosing myself in the aftermath of betrayal. It was knowing that the hardest part was done. The truth was exposed. And now, finally, the healing could begin. Because I wasn't the woman who doubted anymore. I wasn't the woman waiting for explanations. I wasn't the woman hoping for better. I was the woman who opened the door, uncovered the truth, and walked through the fire without burning. I was the woman who stayed standing. And tomorrow, I would rise even higher.